Many new backpackers make the same mistakes when purchasing a backpack. These mistakes do not include maxing out your credit card and not telling your spouse. I go backpacking about 20 to 30 times a year and I've owned about 10 backpacks. I'm going to give you 7 tips for buying a great backpack. These are the 4 backpacks that I use right now. I like to call them the Mount Rushmore of backpacks. Let's go from lightest to heaviest. This is the Waymark EVLV. It is a 38-liter frameless backpack. This is the backpack that I wear in hot conditions and when I'm doing big miles. That's because this backpack only weighs 18 ounces. It has a detachable hip belt that I can either leave at home or bring along. But the thing with this backpack is it can only comfortably carry under 20 pounds. Next is the Pilgrim Highline. This is my other ultra lightweight backpack. However, this one has a frame and a fixed hip belt. This one only weighs 21 ounces and I take this one out when all of my gear can't fit in the EVLV or my backpack weighs more than 19-20 pounds. I found that this backpack is comfortable up to about 25 pounds. The next backpack is also from Waymark Gear Company. This is the framed 40-liter Thru backpack. Now this is the backpack that I take out when my gear is going to weigh over 25 pounds. This backpack itself is quite a bit heavier in that it weighs 35 ounces. However, it has really thick padding on the shoulder belt and the hip belt that allows me to carry more weight. The material that this backpack is made out of and that frame in the backpack is what makes it weigh a little bit more. But this is a tank and very durable, and I can carry up to 35 pounds comfortably. The last pack here is my Deuter Act Light 65 Plus 10. Now this is a 75-liter backpack and it has all sorts of pockets and bells and whistles and a lot of unnecessary crap on it. But it can carry a lot of weight. The only time that I wear this backpack is in the winter when I have lots of gear, or other times of the year when I just have lots and lots of gear and I'm not planning to hike very far. In the winter, I usually try to pull my pulk with my gear, but sometimes there isn't enough snow or there are other reasons that make me want to wear the backpack opposed to pulling the pulk. Here are 7 tips for buying a backpack that you're going to love. There's an old saying that size matters.
Ooh la la.
When I say size of a backpack, most people are thinking volume. Yes, you do want to have a backpack that's big enough to carry all of your gear. In fact, before you buy a backpack, you should go out and buy your tent, your sleeping bag, and your sleeping pad so you have a better idea of how big of a pack you're going to need to put those big 3 items in. Now, my wife assures me that bigger isn't always better.
Okay.
You want to have the smallest, lightest, most comfortable backpack possible. Of course, you want to have it big enough where it's going to carry all of your gear. But over time, you're probably going to be buying better gear, downsizing that gear, and bringing less stuff when you go backpacking. That means that the volume of your backpack is most likely going to decrease as you get better and more experienced at backpacking. The gear that I pack in the summer when I go backpacking is a lot smaller and a lot lighter than the gear that I take in colder temperatures when I'm going to need a bigger sleeping bag and more clothing. I go backpacking enough to justify having 4 different backpacks, but you most likely aren't going to go backpacking as much as I do, so you're most likely going to have to buy that backpack that's big enough for the colder temperatures and just deal with having an oversized backpack when it's warmer out. One thing that's super obnoxious is when you're out buying a backpack, not all companies advertise the capacity of their backpacks the same way. One backpacking company may say, this is a 40-liter pack, And what they're talking about is it's 40 liters in the main compartment, but you also have another 10 to 15 liters outside in this front pocket, the side pockets, and other pouches. And another company may say, our backpack is 40 liters, but they're telling you that the overall capacity of their backpack is 40 liters. And in that case, the backpack is much smaller because on the outside you have the 15 liters of storage, but the inside is only 25 liters. So those two backpacks differ about 15 liters in capacity, but they both say that they're a 40 liter backpack. Other than volume, an equally important thing to think about when buying a backpack is your torso length. Backpacks come in different sizes. You can see here on the Waymark website, they have 3 or 4 different sizes for this backpack. It's super important that you buy a backpack with the right torso length, because if you don't, your hip belt is going to be too high or it's going to be too low, and it's not going to help carry that weight and take the weight off your shoulders, and you will be miserable. Many companies that sell backpacks online have instructions for how to measure your torso length. There's YouTube videos, there's all sorts of stuff on the internet. However, if you're not comfortable doing that yourself, you can go to REI or any outfitter that sells backpacks and they can measure your torso for you. Now, there are some backpacks where it has an adjustable torso, which is nice if different people are going to be wearing the backpack, but it's also a feature that makes the backpack weigh a little more. Besides volume and torso length, a very important thing that you want to look into is how much weight can that backpack carry. This 38 liter backpack isn't that much smaller than this 40 liter backpack. This one can carry 19 pounds, and this one can carry up to 35 pounds. So you need to look in the details of the backpack and see how much weight they say it can carry comfortably. Tons of pockets, a brain, straps everywhere, they aren't necessary. If you go into big retailers, most of the backpacks that you're going to see have a strap here, a strap there, a pocket here, a pocket there, a pocket there, all sorts of zippers all over. And it may give you confidence when you go backpacking because you think, I have a place for this, I have a place for that, everything is organized, I am good to go. But the truth is, it's unnecessary and it just adds more weight. If you feel uncomfortable just shoving everything down in your backpack, feed your OCD, go out and buy some cheap, lightweight stuff sacks. Organize all your gear into those various stuff sacks and then put them inside of your backpack. You're going to come out lighter than having all these straps and pockets all over the outside of your backpack. My 3 backpacks that I mainly use are all basically the same sort of construction where there is a large internal compartment. There is a big pocket on the back, which is called a front pocket. There are 2 side pockets, and I like to add on water bottle pockets onto my shoulder straps. All the gear and the food that you want to keep dry is going to go inside of your backpack. Other things like your water filter, your bag for filtering water, your rain gear, and other things that you don't mind getting wet can go in these outside front pocket. These side pockets, a lot of people put water bottles in there. I like to put my tent poles, my saw, my cook kit, and things like that on the side. The nice part about having the water bottles up on your shoulders is I can't reach these side pockets. You don't have to be a contortionist or take off your backpack to get those water bottles on the side when you can just be walking along and grab one and have a drink and put it back easily. The materials that backpacks are made out of vary quite a bit. In fact, these 4 backpacks are all made out of different materials. Those materials can vary on how durable they are, how much they weigh, how waterproof they are, and all of those factors factor into how expensive they are. Now, if you were to compare a large backpack like this Deuter one with all of the pockets and straps and zipper and brain to a similar one on Amazon, you're going to find that the one on Amazon may cost 25% of what this one costs. And I assure you that you're usually going to get what you pay for. That one on Amazon, the buckles, the sewing, things like that may not last as long as one like this Deuter that I've had for 10 years. Most backpacks are made out of a nylon or a polyester, and they all have different names and different characteristics and different weights. And I like to go to a website called Ripstop by the Roll. This is a company that just sells material. They don't sell backpacks. They sell material for people who like to do it yourself and make their own gear. But on that website, you can read about all of these different funky names for Ripstop this, Dyneema that, whatever, and it'll tell you the characteristics of that fabric. When it comes to the more expensive ultra lightweight backpacks, you'll find that the materials that they're made out of is very trendy, and people are talking about, oh, you got to get this one, you got to get that one. A few years back, it was this Dyneema fabric that this one's made out of. But you can hear that it's kind of crinkly and kind of plasticky, but it's super ultra lightweight and very waterproof. Right now, my personal favorite is this Ultra 200 fabric that my Evolve is made out of. Very similar to Dyneema, but it's not as crinkly and it feels more like a fabric. Keeping your gear and your clothing dry on a backpacking trip is not only important for staying happy, but it's also important for staying safe. Now, there are expensive and cheap fabrics on backpacks, and they have various levels of how waterproof they are. But you can have the best material on a backpack that's super waterproof, and your backpack may not be waterproof. And the reason for that is there is a lot of sewing on these backpacks. There's a lot of seams, and water can seep in through those seams. These Waymark backpacks, they aren't seam sealed. This Deuter isn't seam sealed, and water can come in through those seams. Now, this Pilgrim backpack, it has a tape that the manufacturer put in there, and he taped all of the seams, and that keeps the water from seeping in through all of those seams. I like to take secondary precautions to make sure that the gear inside of my backpack stays dry. Even if it is seam sealed and waterproof, I just feel more comfortable by doubling up a little bit. And there are 3 different ways that you can double up and make sure that your gear stays dry. The most popular one that I see out on the trail is people put a pack cover on their pack. So you buy a separate piece of gear here. It's a cover. It's basically a raincoat for your backpack. So you pull it out. If it starts raining, you pull it out, you put it on your backpack. It's got elastic in here. You tighten it up and you keep on backpacking. This is really handy and better than some of the other options because it keeps the exterior of your backpack dry. And when the exterior of your backpack gets wet, it can make your backpack weigh a little bit more. The thing that I don't like about this is what I just did. In order to keep your backpack dry, you have to stop, take off your backpack, pull out your rain cover, put your rain cover on, put your backpack on, and keep on hiking. And a lot of times if it's just sprinkling, you're like, do I put my rain cover on or don't I? Another popular method for doubling up and making sure that your gear stays dry is to put a liner inside of your backpack. This is basically taking a garbage bag and putting it inside of your backpack. They also have these Nylafume liners that you can buy that are super ultra lightweight. And the nice thing about these is it's a little bit more efficient and you can pack more things into a smaller backpack if you don't have all of those stuff sacks. The one thing that you do have to be careful if you're using a liner is when you're stuffing all of your things into the backpack, that liner stays up at the top and doesn't get stuffed down with your gear. My preferred way to keep that secondary protection and keep my gear dry is to use stuff sacks. I have a large compression stuff sack that I keep all of my down in, all of my clothing in. I have a different one that I put my electronics in. I have a different one that my food goes in. And of course I have my hammock and I have my rain tarp and other ones. So it keeps all of that gear separated. And the thing I like about this versus the pack cover is, again, I don't have to stop if it starts raining. All of my stuff is going to say dry. The bad part about this is having all of these stuff sacks. They're kind of like little bricks, and you're kind of playing Tetris to get everything inside of your backpack. Most backpacks are constructed to carry over 25 pounds and have a hip belt. That hip belt is a very important factor because the hip belt on a properly fitted backpack is going to take some of that weight and some of that wear and tear off of your shoulders. Not all hip belts are built the same. This backpack is built for carrying 35 pounds, and it has a big, wide, beefy hip belt with lots of padding. This backpack is built for carrying 19 pounds. It has a removable hip belt that doesn't have as much padding and is a lot lighter. Now, some of the ultra lightweight backpacks don't have hip belts, and it's kind of nice when you're hiking a long ways to not have that restraint on your hips, or if you're on a trail where you're crawling and climbing, it's kind of nice to not be restrained. But be warned, not having a hip belt is really going to carry all of that weight on your shoulders, and you need to make sure that your backpack is light. When I'm out on a hike and I don't have a hip belt, I like to have a fanny pack that allows me to stuff my phone, snacks, and other little things where I can get to it easily. Like hip belts, most backpacks that are geared for heavier weights have an internal frame. That structure helps carry the weight, and that structure also can provide ventilation to your back. Having a frameless backpack sounds super sexy. It's minimalistic, it's lighter, it's less rigid, and it is really nice as long as your backpack is ultra lightweight. However, if you are a little bit heavier, having that weight and not having that structure really stresses your shoulders, and it can be super uncomfortable. There needs to be a lot more thought when you are packing a frameless backpack. Without that structure, you need to be careful, and often what people do is they pack things vertically. Their stuff sacks vertically, their tent vertically, and those vertical bags provide a little bit of structure. And you should also be warned, frameless backpacks don't have that ventilation on your back, and you are going to have a lot of back sweat. So with that back sweat, if you don't have good waterproofing between your gear and your back, your gear could get wet. My favorite backpacks aren't available at traditional brick and mortar stores like REI, Dick's, Cabela's, and other small outfitters. They also aren't available on Amazon. You can find them through small cottage vendors who have websites. My favorite cottage vendors are Light AF, Waymark Gear Company, Zpacks, Pilgrim UL. Now, I like these companies because their designs are good, and I find that they're constructed much better than the mass-produced backpacks. They are all small American-made businesses, and while it is good to support the little guys, you should be warned that sometimes there's a wait time between ordering your backpack, it being made, and it being delivered. So buying a backpack is super exciting, don't forget that. But I realize it is also very stressful because it is a major investment. Trying to figure out things like volume, torso size, materials, what company, super stressful. And it can be magnified if you're buying your backpack online and don't have a chance to touch it or to try it on. The two things that you should remember from this video is don't buy too big of a backpack. Most likely you're gonna scale down your gear and not need all of that volume in the future. And the other thing is more expensive backpacks are usually worth it. Buy once, cry once. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of this video. If you like this video, I do other gear reviews and I do a lot of trip videos to some fabulous locations. So go ahead, do me a favor and hit subscribe, punch the bell notification, check out Midwest Backpacker on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks for coming along. We'll see you out on the trail.